But we want to talk about it specifically with our next guest, Liz Peek. She's a FoxNews.com columnist and Fox Business contributor, and Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform president. We brought you guys on to talk about Biden's presidency, but actually this is breaking news, and it's a little more interesting. We've been hearing a lot about Biden's presidency over the past week. Liz, I want to come to you first. Do you think that if Musk is serious about terminating the deal, that it would hold up in court, because he's got that $1 billion kill fee that he's got to pay?
Well, look, I think it's perfectly understandable that he wants the facts about Twitter. I mean, they can't stonewall a potential buyer about basically the fundamentals of their business, David. And this has been a conversation that's been going on for weeks, and he has been unsatisfied by the response from the company. I heard Ken Cuccinelli talking about it, and I agree that the board is culpable here in terms of not following through with the information that Musk has been demanding. But let's face it, it's management really on the griddle here. I mean, they're either lying about what the sort of underpinnings of the company, or they're not. If they're not, they have to trot out the information that Musk wants. Did he buy precipitously at too high a price, or did he offer too much? Probably, because it was right after that that the value of all the tech stocks began to really tumble. But I think the germ of his issue here is pretty legitimate.
Well, it's been 2 months, and Grover, you just think of all these ticked off stockholders who are saying, you know, if they had jumped and accepted the idea of $54 a share, it's now trading about $20 a share less than that, and God knows what it'll trade at on Monday. I mean, I can see a lot of lawsuits. The effect that this could have on the company, I wouldn't say it would kill the company, but it would do it a lot of damage, right?
It will, but it's also a model for other companies to look at. Here you had what appears to be a thoroughly politicized management and board having fun canceling people they didn't like. And when asked, can you prove to advertisers how many real people there are that you're reaching, their answer was, we don't know, we won't tell you, we're hiding it. They don't know? That's really a problem. They know, but they're not telling, and they lied to advertisers. That's a bigger problem. I think people who've been going for diversity on boards instead of talent, and people who allowed management to have fun with their politics rather than doing their job, may want to rein some of that in.
And Grover, you know, there are a lot of other questions that people who are members of Twitter who've been posting stuff on have about the way it deals with the likes and the dislikes, and whether they're playing with the figures. If there are lawsuits, there will be a request to open the books. So maybe we will all see exactly what they have been doing with their various accounts.
And people may ask questions about other social media as a result.
Yeah, and Liz, what happens to the competition? We know that the president is trying to set up his own account. Truth Social is out there. A lot of people are using it now. There are other competitors as well, by the way, but some of them have been beaten down by the tech consortium, if you will. But this helps the competitors of Twitter, doesn't it?
Somewhat, David, but I would not knock Twitter out at this point. I wouldn't rule out. Frankly, I wouldn't rule out the company opening its books to some degree, having further discussions with Elon Musk, and having Elon Musk come back with a lower price. I mean, I think the real issue is twofold. One, he offered too much money for a company that at the moment was sort of sinking. And B, I think Twitter's been dishonest with them. So let's see what happens. I mean, I don't think Truth Social or Parler or any of these other companies really have the bandwidth at this point to take enormous advantage of Twitter. And I don't expect, by the way, I won't go off Twitter just because of this going on. I don't imagine most people will. So, you know, let's see what happens. I don't rule out a rebid at some point.
Well, Grover, the bottom line is that a lot of institutions, you're right inside the Beltway, in the belly of the beast, a lot of media institutions do rely on Twitter in order to tease their own material, but more than that, to get ideas, because the universe of ideas that is brought to the table in Twitter, just that come onto your phone here, is so valuable right now that but it has never been commoditized properly. That's one of the reasons that Musk wanted to buy it.
Well, the establishment press reads people's tweets and then uses them as if they were an interview that they'd gotten.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's a source for them.
Yeah. But Liz, talk about whether or not this is going to change social media at all. I mean, the fact that if a lot of folks were hoping that Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter would make it a little more honest, a little less far left leaning. Do you think that at least what has happened so far has put it on guard that they can't keep doing business as usual?
David, I think they've already changed a lot of their practices. I can't prove it, but we all know, and I would include myself in this, that whereas we used to get a trickle of new followers every now and then, now it's really quite a steady thing. And as you know, a lot of people on the right saw enormous gains in the number of followers right after the Musk deal was announced. I think that whatever they were doing to suppress the following of people on the right, and I do believe they were doing some of that consciously and purposefully, I think they changed their practices. So I think it's already made a change at Twitter. Again, I doubt that they would reverse those algorithms or decisions or whatever it is. I think there's been a little too much sunlight shown on the practices and the unfairness, if you will, of these social media platforms. So I think there might be some changes.
On the other hand, Grover, it's something that's been happening to a lot of media organizations over the past couple of months as they've realized how far this Biden presidency is sinking. I mean, you look at what's happened to the Washington Post and the pushback from Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, but the content as well. The content, even the New York Times, although it's slower to go after Biden than the Washington Post was, even they are beginning to question this administration more than they had.
Somebody flipped a switch and said you're now allowed to criticize Biden in meaningful ways. Instead of mocking the criticism of somebody else as if you were reporting it. And when somebody started, and it's like a stoning, first one stone and then everybody throws a stone.
Yeah.
It really has picked up a pace, and be fascinating to see who threw the first stone.
Yeah. Although I have to say, Liz, and this is getting into what we were going to talk about, while there are attacks on Biden, they're coming from people who would implement, if they were in power, exactly the same policies or policies that are even further to the left than the ones that he's been implementing.
That's right. An awful lot of it is personal ambition shining through, I think, David. You have progressives on the left who are just horrified that their agenda isn't moving forward, and they're blaming Joe Biden. So that's a little bit of a different thing. But you forgot to mention CNN, because there's another news organization, or at least supposed to be a news organization, that presumably has kind of tweaked their model too. Look, we just
By
had
the way, I didn't forget. I just
out.
chose not to mention them, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know. We just had polling come out that showed that the trust in media, both broadcast and also newspapers, all-time low, and it's really bad. I mean, I don't think that anyone really feels terrific that Americans can't trust their news sources. That's not good for our country.
No, it's not. Liz and Grover, great stuff, folks. We appreciate it. I know you turned on a dime on the subject here. We appreciate you doing so. Good to see you. Have a great weekend. Thanks very much. We'll be right back. Stay with us.